Hello beloved brick community and a warm welcome from Dr. Noppe. In March I want to discuss Lego trains. I actually thought about taking you on a journey from where it all began, like way back in the 60s, 1966 to be exact, to show you what Lego has offered, and then of course continue that journey to the 70s, the great 80s when the gray area started, up to the 90s, up to 2000 when Lego trains had a huge comeback, and until the current state. We also will discuss the various train stations that came along. We will discuss other structures like level crossings, fuel refineries, cranes, cargo areas, stuff like that. We also will take a look at the competition, as we know that Lego doesn't care about trains anymore, but the competition has enjoyed a huge interest in trains, so we will be taking a look at that. And then of course we will look into the future of trains, what Lego has in store currently, and maybe for the foreseeable future. So I hope we will have a great time together over the next month, so let us get started. According to the Lego homepage, they introduced the first fully movable brick-built train in 1964, set number 323. It ran on the recently introduced rubber wheels. Rails did not yet exist. As you probably know, the dedicated train line with rails and related special train wheels actually started in 1966. Here we look at my oldest train set, number 151 curved tracks, blue at the time, they later changed to grey. Set 150 were straight tracks. I don't have the box, but plenty of straight tracks of course. Back then you needed two rails, either a larger outer curve and an inner small one, or two straights which were placed on a 2x8 plate in white, serving as railway sleepers. Hence a segment contained three pieces. Today this is all in one piece and you don't have to attach anything. To create a full circle you need 16 curved segments. An interesting fact, as the outer curve is longer than the inner one, they have ridges, so that you can feel them actually and hear it. And so do the straights. This helps to better differentiate the track pieces and to provide grip to the train wheel, which had a similar ridge. And now you can see a platform in action. We have this push train base, which is going in circles. Lego introduced a special and interesting wheelbase which allowed to switch wheels. Simply detach the train wheel and replace it with the rubber-coated car wheel. And now your platform can run on any smooth surface without any rails. A clever and versatile solution. Fun fact, the radius of the train track circle was 40 studs wide, approximately 70 centimeters, which was kept intact until today. Even though the tracks changed over time, from blue to grey in 1980 to grey with metal rails for the 9-volt system in 1991 to the current plastic segments for the RC powered trains introduced in 2006, the radius never changed. This has the major advantage that all trains and wagons ever produced can still be used on today's tracks. Isn't that great? So as mentioned, I will take you through a journey in time, and I will keep this layout but also add it of course to the new era, right? We can see here, so we got these, then Lego invented additional tracks. So in 1967 we got switches, very nice, so you had additional playability. And then in 1968 they came up with a crossing. Unfortunately I only have one of the switches, by the way. And then one additional thing which I think has a very good play feature was a level crossing. Here we go. This is actually a very nice and very clever part, because in 1969 we got the famous 12-volt system, famous indeed as it had rails in the middle to provide power, electricity to the 12-volt engine, but we also got components, electronic components, that we could actually control the switches by a touch of a button, which was really nice and got this more to a real interesting fact, away from more or less kids to maybe young adults at the time. And to make this happen, we can see that this piece here had a middle part that you can actually take away in order to put the power supplying tracks onto it. So we will add this in a moment and I come back in a second. I created this little train oval with 16 curved segments and 2 straight segments. We see starter train set 111, a push-along train, as we can see, going smoothly, with a tipper wagon in white. The tipper wagon actually got its own career as set 125, released in 1969. In the same year, we also get set 158, railroad crossing gate or level crossing. This can open the gates to have a car go through or close them to have a train pass. A great start to begin a LEGO train journey, I think. In addition to push trains, LEGO introduced a motor as well. It was a generic motor to actually drive all sorts of LEGO models, but you could also attach LEGO train wheels. It came with a battery box, which could simply be stacked on top, looking weird but important, serve also as a counterweight. The motor does work, I tried and tested it, but I do not have any functioning original battery boxes left, as the outdated batteries destroyed them all. They started leaking and broke the internal metal connectors. Nonetheless, I will use the battery card to demonstrate usage. So folks, as mentioned, we will begin a journey, right? A journey that started in 1966 with the push train kind of thingy with a trailer and of course tracks, right? With a later added crossing, railroad crossing with signals, trees, flag post signs, whatnots, motors like this, and later on of course 9-volt, 12-volt, whatever, cars and the likes. And what we will do is we will keep this layout. So now we have the blue tracks from 66. In 80 they turn gray, we will keep those. We will have the blue 12-volt electrical tracks. We will have later on the gray electrical 12-volt tracks and then 9-volt conducted rails. And we will also do the same buildings, right? So if we have a, let's say, Shell station, we will keep that continued through the journey, and as well as other buildings like central stations and stuff like that. So we'll keep this layout. So this now being the oldest 4.5 volt engine I have in the maximum layout with signals, direction changes and the whole box. Here we can nicely see that a regular wagon fits on a element of the trains, right? So and I can feel by just pushing it that it already has some friction at the corner. So on a straight it would go much smoother, but the curves already put some weight onto pulling it. So as we mentioned, the appearance of the trains are a little bit childish, right, or out of proportion. I think from a height perspective it's okay. Well, I think if we put the guy in here, we have one in there, I think that is realistic also. If you imagine we had a station, right, you would sit here, do a step upward. So I think that's all okay. Just the length, of course, is small. And as we noticed, each of the trains and wagons are 16 studs long. This is one track segment actually. And I think the coal car is fine, right? So that's not bothering me either. The tanker car, as we see it, this from a height perspective again, and this of course is a version from 1975, right? Old, no minifix at the time. But that I think holds true. It's just the length that would bother me. And then here, of course, we have a car, 75 again, too short, but nonetheless, I think, You get the idea, right? So it doesn't look too realistic, except the train, I think itself, the locomotive, that looks realistic to me. Smaller would be larger, but it's fine. If we compare it to a car, the mini car from 1973, of course this looks ridiculous, right? So I think from that perspective, if we didn't have the minifigs, I think that would be okay, right? But as we know, no one could say it's like a push cart, right? Like a go-kart kind of thing for Dr. Noppe. Yeah. So that's basically where I think the idea of the small trains come. What is, of course, very helpful is that you can easily attach these and put them on. You can do this with one hand, right? And they go nicely around the corners. So that's easier, much easier than the later larger ones. Here we have the bird's eye view, and we can see cornering of those trains. It's very smooth and very easy, except the squeaky wheels. In 1968 we got the signal with a stop and go function, and in 1969 we got a direction changer. You can see this in action when the signal gets released. Click this down and you have the reverser thingy pushing a little lever. So at least you had some more interaction than just going around. Of course this is the wrong train, right? This is a train from the 80s, but you get the idea. And here we are. We have installed the electronic rails in the middle, connected them with a wire to this transformer, actually the very first 12-volt transformer. Later they went much smaller, but you didn't have studs. And I tell you what these studs would do. Unfortunately light's broken, but nice little switch, actually looking the same as the train wheels at the time. And then you could actually have that engine go. Speed control, of course, a lovely idea. Here we actually have a little mock locomotive that I've built way back when. Of course with parts from the later 80s, because we have lights. They did not exist in '69. But nonetheless, a nice little locomotive. And you can see the windshield, of course. We didn't have 6 wide windshields, so it's a windshield, regular one, which is 2x4, and then a single one which is 2x2, which I think these are no longer made. So that actually came along, and it was a fantastic time. I remember very well when this came available in the shops. I couldn't, get my hands on it. They were too expensive. I was too young, and I had to wait a significant amount of time before these things got to me. But man, this changed the way we played Lego. And in our next video, we will leap into the next decade, into the 70s, where we got much better trains, more dedicated, like you see this one here. The train, set number 725, prominently at the outside of the train. We had real moving coils here, right, which was really cool. We had the real buffers, much more detailed than the old kind of thingy that we saw over there. Yeah. So stay tuned and keep on bricking.